let's get straight to it. The federal budget deficit is one of those topics that sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple at its core, and incredibly important for every American. Whether you're following politics closely or just trying to make sense of the headlines, understanding the deficit is key to understanding the country's financial future. The government just posted a federal budget deficit of $291 billion for July. That's not just a statistic, it's a snapshot of how much more the government spent than it brought in, just in a single month. That's billion with AB, a number so huge it barely feels real. To put it in perspective, that's enough money to fund entire state budgets or to pay for major infrastructure projects across the country. But this isn't just a big, scary number, it's a warning sign about the country's financial health. When deficits get this large, it signals that something is out of balance. The deficit is the gap between what the government collects in taxes and what it spends, on everything from defense to national parks, social security, healthcare, education, and countless other programs that touch our daily lives. When you spend more than you earn, you have a deficit. It's like running up a credit card bill you can't pay off at the end of the month. When the government does it, the problem is massive. The numbers are so big they can affect the entire economy, from interest rates to the value of the dollar. This isn't a one-off, it's a pattern that's been growing, like a snowball rolling downhill. Each year, the deficit adds to the national debt, making the problem harder to solve. While politicians argue, the financial hole just gets deeper. Debates rage over where to cut spending or how to raise more revenue, but solutions are hard to come by. Think of it as the nation's credit score, and right now, it's flashing red. If the deficit keeps growing, it could mean higher borrowing costs for the government, and eventually, for all of us. July's $291 billion is just the latest chapter in a long saga of overspending. Year after year, the numbers keep climbing and the consequences become harder to ignore. So, what's really driving this, and why should you care? The deficit isn't just a problem for politicians in Washington, it affects everyone, from the cost of borrowing money to the future of programs we all rely on. Let's break down what's behind these numbers, and what it could mean for you and your family. Let's break it down with a household analogy. Imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a stack of bills, trying to make sense of where all your money went this month. You've got your income, your expenses, and, if you're like most people, a few surprises that throw your careful planning off track. Imagine you earn £3,000 a month but spend £3,500 because you splurged on something silly. Maybe a new gadget, a spontaneous weekend trip, or just too many takeaways. It feels good in the moment, but now you're staring at a gap in your budget. That £500 gap is your deficit, and you cover it with a credit card, your debt. It's a quick fix, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem. Next month, you'll owe even more, and the cycle starts to feel endless. The more you borrow, the more interest you pay, making it harder to balance your budget next month. Suddenly, a chunk of your income goes just to cover last month's spending, and you're left scrambling to keep up. Now scale that up to the size of a country. The government works the same way, just with more zeros, millions and billions instead of hundreds and thousands. The stakes are much higher, but the basic math is surprisingly similar. Its income is taxes. Its spending covers everything from healthcare and education to roads, pensions, and interest on its debt. Every service you rely on, every benefit you receive, comes from this giant, complicated budget. When spending exceeds income, the government borrows by selling bonds, its version of a credit card. Investors buy these bonds, expecting to be paid back with interest, and the government promises to pay them over time. And those bonds come with interest payments that keep growing. The more the government borrows, the more it owes in interest, and the harder it becomes to keep up with all the payments. Unlike you, the government rarely cuts back. Every program has defenders, so spending keeps rising. Politicians argue, citizens protest, and tough choices are often postponed, making the problem even bigger. Debt grows, interest payments balloon, and the cycle repeats. Each year, the numbers get bigger, and the challenge of balancing the budget becomes more daunting. The government is living on its credit card, and the minimum payments are now astronomical. Just like in your household, paying only the minimum means the debt never really goes away. It just keeps piling up. It's a cycle that's hard to break. The more you owe, the more you pay in interest, and the less you have for everything else. It's exhausting, and it feels like there's no way out. The result? A deficit that keeps getting bigger. Each year the gap widens and the numbers become more alarming, making it harder to imagine a solution. And that's exactly what's happening now. The government's budget is like a household budget on an absolutely terrifying scale. Except there's no easy fix and the consequences affect us all. So why was July's deficit so huge? What made the government's financial hole even deeper this time around? Let's break it down. Partly it's seasonal, some months see more spending, others more revenue. For example, tax deadlines and benefit payments don't always line up, so the numbers can swing dramatically from month to month. But this year, there's a bigger story. Spending is rising much faster than income, and the gap between what the government brings in and what it pays out is widening at an alarming rate. Imagine your rent, car, and grocery bills all jump at once, outpacing your pay raise. Suddenly you're scrambling to cover the basics and your savings start to shrink. For the government, it's a similar story. Spending is up on social programs to support families, on defense to maintain security, and, crucially, on interest payments for all the money borrowed in the past. Interest payments are now the fastest growing part of the budget. They're not just a line item, they're a tidal wave swelling larger every year. We're spending hundreds of billions just to pay interest on old debt. That's money that doesn't build roads, fund schools, or improve healthcare. It just keeps the debt collectors at bay. It's like digging a hole and paying someone to keep digging it deeper, instead of filling it in or building something new. The real problem isn't just new spending, it's the cost of past borrowing catching up. Every year, the bill for yesterday's choices gets bigger, and it's getting harder to ignore. Interest payments are now a monstrous expense, crowding out other priorities. The more we owe, the less room there is for things that actually help people today. We're borrowing more just to pay interest, a financial tail chase with no end in sight. It's a cycle that feeds on itself, making it harder to break free. The deficit is growing not just from new decisions, but from the compounding cost of old ones. That's the real drama. A financial snowball rolling downhill, picking up speed, and threatening to overwhelm everything in its path. The government tried to fix things with tariffs, taxes on imported goods. The idea? Boost domestic industry and bring in extra revenue. And yes, tariff revenue did go up. But compared to the scale of government spending, it's a drop in the ocean. It's like finding a 20-pound note when you owe thousands. The extra money from tariffs was quickly swallowed by rising expenses, especially interest payments. Imagine making £100 from a side hustle, but your credit card interest jumps by £500. Tariffs can't keep up with runaway spending and compounding debt. The government celebrated a small win while ignoring the bigger problem. Tariffs were a band-aid on a gaping wound. The patient is still bleeding out. Tariffs aren't just ineffective, they come with side effects. Companies pass tariff costs to consumers, making everyday goods more expensive. So, you pay more for TVs, appliances, and more. This hidden tax can slow consumer spending and hurt the economy. Tariffs also disrupt supply chains, causing delays and higher costs for businesses. Other countries retaliate, sparking trade wars that hurt exports. Protecting one industry can harm another. Tariffs are a blunt tool with unpredictable consequences. They're a small revenue source compared to government spending. The costs often outweigh the benefits. Tariffs aren't a magic bullet, they're a risky gamble. The real monster? Interest on the national debt. Compound interest means we borrow more just to pay interest, making the debt grow even faster. For years, low rates made this manageable, but those days are over. Now, interest payments are a headline act, devouring tax revenue. Imagine your mortgage payment doubling overnight, not for a bigger house, just higher rates. That's what's happening to the country. More tax money goes to bondholders, not public services. It's a deadweight loss, money that produces nothing for the country. The more we spend on interest, the less we have for everything else. This creates a vicious cycle: more debt, higher interest, less room to maneuver. The deficit is now driven by the relentless math of compounding interest. Escaping this spiral is incredibly tough. If spending cuts and tariffs aren't enough, what about raising taxes? Sounds simple, but it's risky. Higher taxes can slow the economy. Less disposable income means less spending. Higher business taxes mean less investment. Raise taxes too much and you risk a recession, which could make the deficit worse. Politically, tax hikes are a hard sell. No one likes paying more. Even targeted tax increases rarely raise enough to fix the problem. And if taxes get too high, people and companies find ways to avoid them or move elsewhere. Taxing our way out isn't a silver bullet. It's a balancing act with real risks. So what's the answer? There isn't a simple one. Tariffs are a distraction, tax hikes are risky, spending cuts are politically explosive. Every program has defenders, making cuts a battle. The deficit is too big and complex for any single fix. Real solutions will require a mix: targeted spending cuts, smarter revenue policies, and trade strategies that foster growth. It'll take balance, compromise, and political courage, qualities in short supply. Ultimately, the real issue is the gap between what we want from government and what we're willing to pay for. Our spending, driven by past promises and rising interest, is outpacing revenue. The big question, do we cut services, pay more taxes, or keep borrowing and hope for the best? The choice is ours, but the clock is ticking.